In 1350, what we know as the idyllic French countryside was a living hell. For more than 15 years, the people had suffered at the hands of English invaders. Little did they know that this war would last for another 100 years. But through this crucible of fighting, famine, and plague, there would emerge the modern nation of France. England's King Edward III looked jealously across the English Channel. Wanting France for his own, he had added the fleur-de-lis, the symbol of France, to his own royal standard. This was an all-out declaration of war. And in 1337, he invaded. But France already had a king, Philippe VI. As the English burned their way across the land, Philippe's army and his legendary knights marched to meet them and came face to face with the English longbow. A simple weapon, but the most devastating the knights had ever faced. The heroes of France fell to storms of English arrows. The war engulfed the French countryside. By 1351, the conflict was focused on Brittany. One fight stands out as a spectacular display of chivalry and a symbol of the wider conflict between the two enemy nations. The Combat of the 30 is still commemorated here in Brittany. It was a dispute between two local families. Supported by the opposing sides in the war, the French and English commanders decided to settle it through a trial of knightly combat. Each side would choose 30 champions to fight on neutral ground. France prepared to defend itself against England's finest. Intent on ending the suffering of the French peasantry, Sir Jean de Beaumanoir sent a challenge to the English commander. 30 champions on each side would compete in a tournament for final claim to Brittany. With the battleground of the Halfway Oak agreed upon, Sir Jean set out to gather support from local knights.
Obéir, c'est vertu.
As a knight himself, Sir Jean followed the strict rules of chivalry and was expected to protect the local peasantry and ensure peace.
Je veuille vous obéir. Si tristus vos
Most medieval tournaments were friendly in nature, held for sport and glory, but the combat of the 30 was arranged between opponents mired in war. English raids had torn through the countryside of Brittany and brought great hardship to the people. Sir Jean's search next brought him to Sir Geoffroy du Bois, whose squires were contending with a detachment of English longbowmen. The knights would use the great speed of their war horses to charge the archers and overwhelm them. The English longbowmen fell, but the French knights knew the enemy would attempt to retake the hilltop fortification and steeled themselves for further attacks.
Quae sunt vos commandement? Si fes vos commandements?
Acest vos, compagnon. Si, attendons!
Sir Jean spotted an English raiding party attacking a nearby farmstead.
Page! Page commandement!
As a knight himself, Sir Jean followed the strict rules of chivalry and was expected to protect the local peasantry and ensure peace.
Si fes vos commandements? À mort les ennemis!
Most medieval tournaments were friendly in nature, held for sport and glory, but the combat of the 30 was arranged between opponents mired in war. English raids had torn through the countryside of Brittany and brought great hardship to the people. Sir Jean spotted an English raiding party attacking a nearby farmstead.
Activated.
The French knights defeated the English raiders, and Sir Guy de Rochefort joined Sir Jean's party. Sir Jean's search next brought him to Sir Geoffroy du Bois, whose squires were contending with a detachment of English longbowmen.
Attendez, je cours dessus.
The knights would use the great speed of their war horses to charge the archers and overwhelm them. The English longbowmen fell, but the French knights knew the enemy would attempt to retake the hilltop fortification and steeled themselves for further attacks.
Compagnon! Retrayez vos amouets.
Looking to secure his honor, a young knight held his ground on a bridge in Sir Jean's path. Honorably conceding defeat in the duel, Sir Yves Charel joined the cause.
Avertissez votre courage, compagnon. Fronde, je commande, avant. Avertissez votre courage, compagnon. Certes.
Sir Jean entered the staging area for the tournament, where he prepared to choose which knights would join him in battle. Each knight would be accompanied by his squires, young nobles in training to become knights themselves.
Je veux vous obéir. Mon destrier règne. Mon arway mègne avec moi. Je suis votre serveuse.
Sir Jean had selected his champions. As the sun rose, the two sides entered the arena, ready for the first round of combat. Claiming an easy victory in the first round, the French champions left the arena to recover their strength.
Was euch donc?
Obéir, c'est vertu.
Aveuillez votre, veci commandement. Place, veci commandement. Et comprends.
Refreshed and reinvigorated, the French knights returned to the arena for another round of combat. The combat of the 30 was about to decide which nation would control the Duchy of Brittany. Triumphant, Sir Jean de Beaumanoir and his loyal knights claimed victory. The combat of the 30 had decided control of Brittany in favor of the French. Little did the two sides know, this was just the beginning of a bitter war that would outlive them all. In the 100 Years' War, the English used a terror tactic, a raid through enemy territory, intended to intimidate and provoke the French into battle. It was called chevauchée. The principal weapon for chevauchée was fire. And one of the ways it was delivered was with incendiary arrows.
Challenge with incendiary arrows? Keeping them alight.
One type of incendiary arrow was fueled with gunpowder.
We've got charcoal, got sulfur, and we've got saltpeter. Saltpeter is the main ingredient. The more oxygen you put into it, the hotter it burns. Of course, when it's on an arrow, when it's being shot, you've got a turbocharged airstream.
The chemicals are bound together with brandy, left to dry, and poured into a linen bag. The extra long arrowhead is inserted into the bag and then tied off to secure it. It is then sealed by dipping it into boiling tree resin. This resin, which itself is highly flammable, provides a waterproof casing. It also shields the burning gunpowder so the wind doesn't put it out in flight.
Now that looks deadly, and I really want to shoot it.
The art to shooting an incendiary arrow is timing. Too early, and it will go out. Too late, it will spit at you like a dragon.
That was just evil. That was great.
The word chevauchée means horse raid, and it was mobile light horsemen who spearheaded the attacks. They took gold and silver from the churches, valuables from wealthy citizens, and as much food and drink as they could find from anyone. A chevauchée was scorched earth warfare to create discontent amongst the enemy's subjects, perhaps even to get them to turn against their king. An army on campaign needed a decisive battle. And a chevauchée was intended to taunt the enemy to come out and fight. After victory at the Combat of the 30, the French faced devastating raids from England's Black Prince. But France's King John II was closing in. Jean finally caught the English near the city of Poitiers in September 1356. The French army outnumbered the English by thousands. King Jean himself joined the fight, but what seemed a certain victory for France soon turned into a nightmare. The English longbow devastated the mighty French army. An endless hail of arrows gutted the main French force. Then the English captured King Jean. The fight was over. The Battle of Poitiers was another catastrophic defeat for the French. The English had destroyed most of France's nobility in a single day. Now they turned their attention towards taking the French capital, Paris. The invaders marched unopposed towards Paris. The remains of some of the medieval walls of Paris still stand today. As the English army approached, the terrified locals sought shelter behind these defenses. Could France's capital withstand the full might of the Black Prince's army? The English Black Prince had raided the French countryside without mercy. And now his army had come for the capital. With the English on their doorstep, it fell to the French army and the people of Paris to defend the walls of their proud city. Hoping to avoid open battle, the French began fortifying the city, manning the walls and calling every available soldier to his post. As the French hastened their preparations, several detachments of English soldiers were spotted closing in on the city.
Oi, mestière de mouet.
Having struck out at the English front line, the French had slowed the enemy's advance.
Besoin faire? Si vais exploiteur, que faut-il donc besoigner? Donc il y a l'ores. Je fecte. En besoin. Lors battige s'estui. Longtemps va-t-il demeurer? Vayez moi besoigne. Bien, veille. Oh, me fa au trail. Giovanni Basti. En besoigne. Well, y ves donc. Dos dialores. Que faut-il donc besoigner? Lors batige s'estui. Giovanni Basti. Dos dialores. Ça est bel manuer. Manuer assouvi. Oh, me fa au trail. Si, comme volets.
Advertent lors devant nos salaires.
Accessmet si comme vos voldrez. L'heure est service. I seul tient nos artines.
Vayez moi besoigne. Il trèche sans nul arrest.
Nos prenons trop de traite.
Besoigné à faire? Suis sans quenu. Oi, mestière de mouet. Giovanni Basti. Longtemps va-t-il demeurer? Suis envoyé.
Tex, Sigrid Sway, compagnon.
Attendez les commandes. Mestier des mouets. Tous te y a Lauretz. Bonne besoigne, que faut-il donc besoigner?
Oil, mestière de mouet. Longtemps va-t-il? Oil, mestière de mouet. Oil, si toast.
M besoigne. Lors batige s'estui.
Que faut-il donc besoigner? Dos dialores.
Soyez incontinent. I seul tient nos artines. Nos prenons trop de traite.
Besoigne à faire. Laissez-moi y exploiter.
En besoigne. Lors batige s'estui.
Vayez-moi besoigne. À votre commandement. Oh, me faut trahir. Ouais, y vais donc. Annonce! Reprends-en! Bien dit. Annonce, nos devons salaire. Oyez les ordonnances. Marchiez arrière moi, très tous.
Obéir, c'est vertus. Sie kommt was Woldreus!
Reste pour la besogne, Manans. Manans! En Kemin! Da jetzt moi besogne. Provence abwehr i treich sans nul arrest.
Va jetzt moi.
Mbes
Besoin.
Que faut-il?
Que faut? Oh, me faut. Besoin. En besoin.
Oh, que faut-il donc besoigner?
In nos archives!
Besogne. Fouillère et suis sans vouer. L'ennemi, nos archives!
Attendez les commandements. Soyez prest, compagnons. L'heure est de besoigner. Ils se tiennent nos armées.
Compagnons, voyez bien.
Attendez les commandes pour votre service. Adjustments vos, compagnie suisse votre service. L'heure est de besoigner. Retrayez vos appuis. Ils se tiennent nos archives.
Manans, reste à ouvrir. Est reste un jambert.
Nos prenons troupes de Trix! Ils se tiennent nos archives!
Rien tout le monde. Advertance tout le monde.
Accordé.
Soyez si comme vos soldats. Tous subtilia, avertissez votre corps, compagnons. Chef, je suis votre service. Alors, si vous sommes, retrayez vos appuis.
Wyciec! Wyciec!
Spetsvos, avant! Compagnon!
Oil, mestière de mouet. Giovanni Basti. Ça est Bellman. Bayetzu. Besoin à faire.
Oyex, tout le monde! Allons ça, Trestuts!
Homme faute. Manance, la cette moelle exploitée. Oui, dame. Advertance, tout le monde.
Reste pour la besogne, Manance. Oyex, les ordonnances. Advertative et
Bayetzu moelle besoigne. En besoigne. À votre commandement.
Les commandements. Collets huevos at bits. Soldados on ordonnance! Les chevaux cherchent. Reste tous substance.
Deactivated.
Servir. I13 sens nul arrest.
The English showed no mercy, burning their way to Paris via 3 routes, each of which was home to villages and farms that supplied the capital.
Dicte votre plaisir.
As the French continued to rally their army, the English took the last of the surrounding villages and had almost encircled Paris.
Activated.
With the countryside in flames and the English at the city gates, the French armies steeled themselves for battle. Now came the capital's true test, with the mighty walls of Paris holed against a fearsome English siege. The Parisian Guard raised the alarm as the English began their first assault on the city walls. activated. The French army fought valiantly, repelling the first English attack.
Quand je commande, avant, avertissez votre collège, compagnon. Chevalier! Les commandes, je suis votre serveuse.
Ici Novels commandement.
Soyez prêts, notre Jens vos à moi.
La mort tapeuse de
L'heure est avant, compagnon. Ils se tiennent dans un tir. Acceptez vos chevaliers.
L'ennemi m'attaque.
Acceptez vos compagnons. À l'argent, votre service. Sorti à cessez. À l'argent, chevalier. Soyez prêts, compagnons. Ils se tiennent dans un tir. L'heure est de besoin.
Il n'y faut que la bus.
Il nous attaque.
Rex, jeunesse litière.
The French defense of their capital held firm, wearing down the English invaders one by one.
Attendez les commandements.
Richevreux, chef, escoutez.
Chevalier, passe-porte, avertissez votre collègue. Il continue. Il se tient dans
Rex, jeunesse litière. J'ai besoin. Les autres laissent commandement. Avant, à mon commandement.
De l'ennemi.
Il tient les machines. La mort tapeuse de
Votre jetzt was verloren! Access vos, compagnon.
Compagnon, voyez bien.
Attendez les commandements.
Qui seul tienne dans sa tine? Le ventre à plus de maintenant.
L'heure est de se soigner. Donnez-moi vos advices. Soyez prêts, Swarm de je commande, avant.
Ils tiennent, marchez.
Nos prenons troupe de trait.
Respecte le son de l'ennemi.
Nos prenons troupe de trait.
The enemy grew ever more desperate as their ranks thinned and their hopes of victory faded.
Si je recherche une presse qui brise de cette haine. Il va sortir. Les ennemis sont archés. Voyez bien, compagnon. Je vous donne. Soyez prêts.
À la somme, chevalier. Soyez prêts, compagnon.
Access les forces. Nos departments prima.
Obéis, si comme vos voldrez. Oui, Jimmy. Sommes en recueillant vos savoirs. Chevalier, à la sonne, chevalier. Time, compagnon. En avant. Avertissez votre courage, compagnon. Si fait. Je suis vos amis. On a oui, mais bien avec
Defeated and demoralized by the strength of the French defense, the Black Prince's army abandoned their siege of the capital. Paris celebrated victory, but this was not the last test the French would face in their struggle to win the war. The battlefields of the 100 Years' War were full of danger. To defend against these weapons, a new type of armor was developed: plate armor.
Plate armor clad the knight in an articulating exoskeleton of hardened steel. a hard outer shell that still flexes and moves with the body.
It provided impressive protection and was an extraordinary technological achievement.
Now, one of the ways that armor gets its strength is through shape. Both of these pieces are made out the exact same thickness as steel, but I can show you there's one stronger than the other. Here's the one with no shape. You see it buckles immediately. If I swap it for one that's been forged to have strength and shape, you can see it's much stronger. It's going nowhere.
It wasn't just the shape that gave it strength. It was also how the metal was treated by the armorer.
Now, the benefits of using heat is it obviously makes the piece more plastic, more ductile, lets me shape it. But the fuel also adds layers of carbon into the outer surface. This helps me increase the hardness and strength of the material.
The art of the armorer was being able to judge the temperature of the metal by eye, managing the heat to create resilience in the metal. The combination of heat-treated metal and rigid shapes meant that armor didn't need to be so thick and heavy, making it much easier to fight in. But good quality plate armor did have its downside. It was very expensive.
Now, not everyone could afford full steel plate armor. For the common man, there is the brigandine. Now, these are made up of overlapping steel plates that are then riveted through a textile outer. This gives you a much bigger range of movement, but is limited and is not as strong as a full steel breastplate. That said, it is much cheaper and much easier to maintain.
At its best, the armored knight was invincible. But armor didn't just provide defense. It was also a weapon and an expression of a knight's power and prestige. Armor transformed its wearer into a work of art. The walls of Paris held out against the English onslaught. England's King Edward and the Black Prince abandoned the siege. They marched towards Chartres to try their luck at conquering a less formidable target. But before they could attack, a violent storm hit the army. Killing 1,000 English soldiers in a tempest of hail and freezing winds. To Edward, this Black Monday disaster seemed like divine retribution. A sign that it was time to stop waging war and make peace with France's King Jean. But even as peace between kings was reached, the people of France were still living in bloodshed and turmoil. Between 1358 and 1370, France was in chaos. Peasant uprisings, rampaging bands of mercenaries, and civil war ravaged the country. Peasants rose in rebellion, killing their lords and wreaking havoc. Mercenary bands also roamed the land. Known as routiers, they had once been hired by the English to fight against the French, but were cut loose when peace was reached. They systematically ravaged and pillaged towns across France. And with King Jean prisoner in England, his son Charles the Dauphin faced homegrown attacks on his rule by powerful French lords, beset from all sides. The Dauphin's forces had to regain control over their own country. Having only recently been crowned King of France, Charles V dispatched his army to the French-held village of Évreux to forge order from chaos. From here, the army would move to extinguish three major threats. Bands of roving mercenaries harrying the countryside, a peasant uprising, and attacks from a rival for the French crown, Charles of Navarre. The French army would start by reclaiming the rebel-held villages of Cocherel, Jouy, and Croissy.
Deactivated. Deactivated. Please wait. Trainer activated.
Having only... From here, the army would move to extinguish three major threats. Bands of roving mercenaries harrying the countryside, a peasant uprising, and attacks from a rival for the French crown, Charles of Navarre.
Audite, militaires!
The French army would start by reclaiming the rebel-held villages of Cocherel, Jouy, and Croissy.
Mandesquet,
Mandesqued.
Parats pour Labourard.
Si sommes. Quedme. Mandemans, colones. Ok. Laburo. Comprendo.
Labour Spérance. Restituo.
Labour Spérance. Cos'è sarà massonata?
As the French army struggled to regain control of the countryside, they were struck by a band of English routiers. These mercenaries had been cut loose by the English army and were plundering the countryside in order to make a living.
Labour.
Activated.
Parats pour Labourard.
The French forces eliminated the routier attack, but more were still raiding the countryside in search of provisions and riches. The routier demanded payment from the French, or they would continue their horrifying raids.
Quito. Quedme. Si, comprendo. Io ma sono la cose.
Dolmemi. Pace bove!
Parat porvenir. Pido, si. Qued Labour. Cos'è sarà massonata? Non move. Labour Spérance. Y affect. Vado Labourard. Io ma sono la cose. Mandesqued. Vado Labourard. Cos'è sarà massonata?
Ordine tenets! Equites in avant!
Si sommes. Si sommes. Io ma sono la cose. Buon lavoro.
Paratus et prontus. Attention! Novos ordines, comme mondes.
Parat porvenir. Io ma sono la cose.
Equites sunt paratus! Choquez!
Si sommes. Cos'è sarà massonata?
Attention! Novos ordines. Ordine tenets. Facile, cavalier.
Nombre d'escouade. Cos'è sera massonata?
Dolme bien. Secund mandement. Parate equites.
In taking the village of Jouy, the French army was closer to stemming the peasant rebellion and regaining control.
Equites in avant.
Labour Spérance. Vado Laboura.
The central monastery town of Cocherel would continue to send out rebel attack parties to weaken the French army.
Vado Laboura. Cos'è sera massonata? Vado Laboura. In effect.
The French discovered the Routier hidden camp and could put an end to the English raids if they could destroy the camp.
Cos'è sera massonata?
Equites attendent ici. Es facile, cavalier.
Quel Labour. Movo. Barats pour Laboura. Io sono la cose. Quel Labour. Cos'è sera massonata?
Audite, milites. Pace move.
The village of Croissy, rich in gold deposits, was a crucial town for the French to reclaim.
Vado Laboura. Beneffect. Félicite Beat. Beneffect. Io sono la cose.
Equitas in avant.
Quelle Ito. Cos'è sera massonata?
With the Routier camp destroyed, mercenary attacks were no longer a threat.
Me plaît, Labour Spérance. Io sono la cose.
The French army defeated the rebels at Croissy and took control of the gold-rich village. The central monastery town of Cocherel was still under the control of rebel peasants. The French army would have to take it before they could launch an assault on Charles of Navarre.
Si, comprendo.
Parade pour venir. Mondesqued. Parats pour Laboura. Vado Laboura. Mes plaies. Vado Laboura. Cos'è sera massonata? Félicite Beat. Labourance en Limans. Labour Spérance.
Quoi de Labour?
Qued me? Parade, qued la...
Quoi de mai?
Parade,
La man...
parade pour venir.
Attention. Novos ordines. Ordine tenets.
Parade pour Laboura. Io ma sono la cosa.
Audite, milites. Quitamus. Dorme bien.
Comprendo.
Quitamus.
Les Malsons sont ici!
Ci sommes. Vale excavo.
Quelle.
Io ma sono la cose.
L'anche sopra l'ossa.
Attention, civiliers.
Mondesqued. Io ma sono la cose.
Ordine est facile, cavalier. Orchestre.
Buon la bouffe. La bourse. Non geste straight. Cos'è sarà massonata?
Out equites. In avant. Audite, commandes. Dorme bien.
Félicette Beate. Quelle la bourre.
Veillons l'ennemi!
In aiuto!
Les
Parade pour
Malsons
venir.
sont ici!
Cos'è sarà?
Attention.
Un contrat
Novos
contre me.
ordines. Quitamus. Equites attendent ici. Est facile, cavalier.
Presentez l'encaisse.
Veillons l'ennemi!
Quelle aiuta!
Der Sultan! Les Malsons sont ici!
Parade pour la bourra. Io ma sono la cose.
Ordine tenets. Civaliers.
Veillons l'ennemi! Los menacés!
Quelle la bourre.
The French army took control of the rebel villages, and the peasant uprising was subdued.
Un besoin.
But to keep control over the region, they would need to defend its center of influence, the monastery at Cocherel.
Dicte-moi mon Versailles.
Northeast of Cocherel, Charles of Navarre's army had established a fortified camp. The King of Navarre sought to make himself ruler of France as well. He intended to press his claim by destroying the newly arrived royal forces.
Baillez-moi ce soir.
Soyez prest, retrayez vos amours.
Manens, preist à œuvrer. Manans, nos devons salaire. Manans, en commune. Longtemps bat-il demeurer. Manans, ouvrons donc. Lors batige s'estuie. Belmanoir. Besogne nous attend. Manance. Wieder.
Accesmets vos, compagnon. Avertissez votre courage, compagnon. L'heure est de... Avant, compagnon.
Commandement pour les chevaucheurs.
Attendez les commandements. Certes.
On me faudrait. Giovanni Basti.
Que faut-il donc besoigner?
Giovanni Bastir.
Dans du besoin, inventaire.
Soyez wand, je commande. Avance.
Manoir assouvi.
Oil, vestir de moi. Si vais exploiter.
Attendez les commandes. Je suis votre serveuse.
Ça est bel manoir. Vayez moi besoigne. Lors battige s'estui. Que faut-il donc besoigner? Laissez-moi y exploiter. Pour vous servir.
Où est l'ennemi?
Il trèche sans plus la reste.
Ennemi qui nous assaute!
Don stia l'ores. Longtemps va-t-il? Oi, mais voir, y vis donc. Si, comme volets. Bien, bien, veis. Lors battige s'estui. Manoir assouvi. Belle œuvre. Besoigne à votre commandement. Si vais exploiteur. Suis sans quemine. Suis sans voué. Giovanni Bastir. Ça est bel manoir. On me faudrait. Don stia l'ores. Bonne effect. Besoin à faire? Don stia l'ores.
Pushing up the hillside, the French discovered Charles of Navarre's camp.
Longtemps soit Mestière de Mouet. Devant les martyrs!
Accespet avant, compagnon.
Ennemi pointoyé!
Size and as well.
The French army had repelled Charles of Navarre, stemmed the revolt, and held back the raids of the routiers. In the struggle for control over France's lands, the king still clung to power. The walls of Paris held out against the English onslaught. England's King Edward and the Black Prince abandoned the siege. A war horse was no ordinary horse. In battle, it was a knight's comrade in arms. By nature, horses are prey animals, but the war horse had to become a predator. They had to be aggressive and fearless, to charge enemy lines and to trample anyone in their way. To achieve this, they were specially bred and highly trained to fight, to lash out with their hooves on command. This meant war horses were expensive and so conveyed high status.
War horses were incredibly strong and powerful, but they were also vulnerable. This is a really big target, and it's much easier to shoot a horse than it is to hit its rider. So just as men wore armor, horses wore armor too.
A knight didn't ride his war horse on the road to battle. It was far too valuable. Instead, they were led by the knight's groom. A knight would take multiple war horses on campaign, as he would need to change to a fresh horse several times during battle. Once geared up, the knight, his horse, and his weapons became a highly effective system.
The heavy cavalry lance had a small ring called a graper, and this locks into my arm, forming a hard linkage, so that the lance can't shoot backwards on impact.
The war saddle was also crucial. With its high back, it locked the rider to the horse.
This means with the graper and the saddle, horse, man, and weapon are all locked together to create one giant horse-powered projectile.
The main purpose of heavy cavalry was to charge straight into the enemy and smash through their lines. the impact charge crashed into an enemy with terrifying force. It required horses with exceptional courage and power.